Welcome back to another edition of the Down and Back with CornDoug. As you can see, we're going to get right into it here. Guest Eric Tscherne back in the Down and Back. Eric, welcome back to the show.
Doug, thanks for having me.
Well, we've been kind of talking here last day or so, just some stuff that we kind of got into that first one, and that was some stuff we can get into a bit more. And the one big thing that we've talked about is sponsorship. Is how we've been seeing some people, tons of posts on Facebook, on social media. I'm an ACL pro, sponsor me. And yeah, that's good. Like that we've talked maybe friends and family stuff, but there needs to be more. And I think with your background, that I know that you've done a lot of stuff that we can really kind of touch base on some other stuff that people may have to do or what they should be doing.
Absolutely, Doug. I think sponsorship is a huge part of players' progression through the sport, particularly as they begin to travel, as they begin to look towards bigger things for them personally and in their career. And it starts often before you get to the pro division. How are you managing potential relationships with equipment sponsors? Maybe there's a deal where they're just giving you some bags or they're giving you some jerseys to wear. Those are what I would refer to as test sponsorships. How you handle those sponsorships and the expectations around those sponsorships set you up for bigger sponsorships down the road. And I think players have a lot to learn as it relates to sponsorship, especially those players who don't have a background in it before they get into the sport.
Well, I know because even for myself with this show, I've been lucky with my sponsors to just fall into my lap. I haven't had to do much work because Octane, it's I've been playing cornhole with Matt for a while. He's like, hey, let's do the show. So that's how Octane came in. JC Cornhole, he makes our boards. I play with Jamie all the time as well too. I had myearfund.com. That was a past guest, DJ Rose, who kind of was like, hey, I've got this sponsor. We talked with them. I've got just a discount code with them to help me out. And then O West with Sierra Home Inspections. Darren O West, great family friend, and he does a lot of great work for cancer stuff. So those kind of sponsorships have just kind of fallen into my lap. I haven't had to really work. I'm not looking for a ton of money to keep this thing going, but it's just some stuff to help along. But those sponsorships are not going to happen all the time, because I know even from other sports with playing hockey and stuff, you got to work at it because everyone wants that. And we talked about off here that ROI, that return of investment for what they're giving you.
So you just said it. Return on investment is the number one thing a sponsor, whether it's a singular person or whether it is a large corporation, is looking to understand as it relates to giving you anything. I am lucky enough to live here in San Diego. I have known Mark Pryor and Ultra for my entire playing career outside of the backyard. My very first tournament, I met Mark and Kyle Larson. Kyle is an advanced player, great player that plays with Mark, and they lent us some bags for the day, right? And from then, I had always supported Mark. As Mark watched my career grow and as watched my skill set grow, and I became more competitive across the advanced division, he offered me a spot on Team Ultra. That's not a paid spot. It's an advanced sponsorship, if you will. It's a free jersey, some bags at a discount, which is a great discount considering how much bags cost these days. Mm-hmm. But what he was looking at was still a return on investment. It wasn't a big investment from him, but his expectation was to see, am I out there? Am I really playing Ultra? Am I promoting Ultra? Is he seeing it in posts on Facebook? Is he seeing it when I go to, local blind draws? Is he seeing other players throughout the San Diego region buying Ultra Cornhole bags? And can he relate that back to the work that I'm doing in some way? Right? Is he seeing more sales throughout North County, which is the part of San Diego where I play? Is he seeing those players when they show up to regionals all shooting Ultra? And he has a reasonable assumption that it is because he's sponsoring local players. Those players are seeing those better players win with those bags. Those bags then become desirable. That type of work is akin to what you have in sponsorships with your podcast. Your first sponsorships are going to start out like that. They're going to be a local restaurant that your neighbor owns, and he wants to sponsor you. It's going to be a local lawyer that is friends with your dad. It's going to be a real estate agent. It's going to be a small gym. It's going to be, you're going to then work up to larger businesses like maybe a franchise car dealership or something along those lines. Those types of sponsorships you're going to have to manage those. You have to understand what they want, what their expectations are. I have a local lawyer friend of mine who I have a sponsorship with, and I think he does it out of kindness. I guarantee that's a good chunk of it. I also think he does it for access. When there's a release from Ultra, he wants to know, can I get that release? Can you help me buy that? He pays for it. He absolutely pays for it. But he wants to know, do I have to really wait in line, or can you help me out? Right? You're on the team. I sponsor you, So, it starts with little things like that, and that understanding of what that guy is looking for. Each of those sponsors has some idea of what they want. And the sooner you understand that, whether it's written, and I suggest it become written, especially as you move up and the money moves up, whether it's written or whether it's implied, you as the sponsored player need to understand that, because that's what you're rated against. And if you deliver on that, and I would suggest you over deliver. Right? If they say, I want 10 posts, you post 12. If they say, I want this, you give them more. Whatever it is, do more. That is the way to get sponsors to be happy. Every happy sponsor is then a feather in your cap when you go to get your next bigger sponsor down the road.
Yeah. Well, and I know in seeing, like we talked about, like the Facebook posts and stuff, people looking for it. I see some of these others, and I know they're new pros or just in the new pro prospect venture that the ACL is kind of getting into. They're all talking about how sponsor me, get on ESPN, CBS, whatever. Some of these new pros coming in, I know the bright-eyed thing of being a pro. Not all pros are going to make that TV time or get there unless, possibly sitting in the stands watching that. But I think you got to show just kind of what really you can bring to that thing, instead of just saying, here's what the ACL as a whole.
Yeah. So my sponsorship deals often very much spell out what I'm doing now for my sponsors, right? Down to my smaller sponsors. And the reality is, with most of my sponsors, I would tell them my chances of getting on television are slim. It's going to take an exceptional weekend from me to get close. I've had that weekend. I got my name to television. Finished second in Philly in my bracket. We got smoked by Jamie and Matt. Ron Kugel and I. We had an epic run and an awesome day. And we were still getting to second in our bracket. We did not make television. The reality is, 4 guys make it in singles. 4 teams, 8 players make it in doubles. Some of those are the same players. You're talking about 12 out of 256, right? Guaranteed television time. If you're female, you have a few more opportunities. You have a few more cracks at it, depending on how many of the women's games make television that week. I fully support that commitment. And those gals deserve every shot they have. But they essentially have up to 4 more opportunities. So that 12 becomes 16 out of 256. You're talking about a very, very small percentage. Is that 8% less of you getting to television? So if you're being really honest with your sponsor, it is about what you bring as a professional cornhole player outside of a national tournament. There are other opportunities at a national tournament, and at the big tournaments, there are now a lot more side broadcast courts for Facebook and a variety of other things. And this is where it really is important how you carry yourself in there as a professional cornhole player, how you present. Are you wearing the jersey that you promised everyone you would wear, or are you wearing your buddy's t-shirt? Are you presenting yourself and your brands when you're on television? Are you self-aware to make sure that things are forward facing, or that you're making sure things, get across the camera? When you do an interview, are you wearing your sponsors, right? I think Rod Miller, I got my Ultra shirt on, right? When you called, I said, okay, I got to make sure I put on something for my sponsors and take care of them. Every opportunity you have to take care of your sponsors is an opportunity for you to deliver on that ROI with them. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for those guys who carry themselves professionally and will represent their brand at any opportunity. They recognize the opportunity and they maximize the opportunity. They make sure to get photos. One of the biggest things that I see with players, and the money is going up now, right? So the money I'm getting this year significantly better than the money I got last year. It's time to invest in ourselves. I can't tell you how many pros that I work with across some of the social media things that I manage that don't have good quality photos of themselves. A few $100s, local sports photographer, you can find them on a lot of different places. Fiverr, you can find them, on Facebook. There are a great, talk to a wedding photographer. He'll probably kick you to another photographer. Get somebody to shoot some high quality photos of you that you own, because you don't own the photos that the ACL took of you. And the ACL generally only shoots the broadcast court. So again, if you're not one of the 8% who makes it to broadcast, there's no photos. So you want to make sure you own some photography of yourself that you can give to your sponsors, that they can use on their websites, that they can use in their social media. Photos you own to use in your social media. Those types of things, take some of that money that you've earned and use it in that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jerseys, for example, today, you can go out and get jerseys anywhere from like $35 to $65, right? If you get somebody for $500 mid-season, he's expecting you to get a new jersey made with his logo added to it. That's just the expectation. And if you don't deliver on that, they're going to be bummed out. Another side of that, at the end of every season, I generally send all of my sponsors a gift of some sort. Sometimes it's just, duplicates of some of the jerseys, might autograph them. Could be a framed picture, could be, any kind of thing that I can have to say thank you for what you did. Those are the kinds of things that you can do from a sponsorship standpoint to manage those relationships and build on it.
Well, I often think of it when you're talking about the jersey and when you're talking on TV or whatever, or any kind of interview, is I always relate it back to NASCAR. Is you've got to be that with all the sponsor stuff on the jersey, and if you have to have that person standing behind the person doing the interview with the little card for you to rhyme off each one of your sponsors, and then those photos. Not everyone sees it all the time for NASCAR, but they do that hat dance where they're sitting for like a half an hour afterwards. Hat, new hat.
I refer to it called the wash,
Yeah.
Because boxes go on one side of the line as the entire team lines up, and they just hand stuff down, and then a box on the other side as they literally take them off and hand them down. Why? Because when the driver wins and that car gets in the winner's circle, he's got 30, 40 people that expect a photo, and they don't want a photo with Pennzoil on the hat if they are Goodyear. Mm-hmm. Goodyear wants photos with the Goodyear hat on. So the wash, it begins. You're not wrong in your expectation. If I was going to coach incoming professional cornhole players, they should be doing some homework on what it means to be a pro. Watching a NASCAR driver speak at the end of a race. Watch the last 2 minutes of interview time across all the big races. Watch a pro golfer accept the trophy. Watch a pro tennis player accept a trophy. Those individual sports where the one singular guy is responsible for his or her performance that weekend and the win, that guy is going to name, at some point in that conversation, he's going to go through a laundry list of sponsors and attempt to get through. He's going to also know which ones are most important. He may have 10 sponsors and know he can only get out 3. He's not going to leave out his title sponsor. I'm going to start personally with Ultra and Rod Miller and Garment Specialties. Those are my biggest financial sponsors. Then I might get into Simple Vision AV or Rustica Garden Works, or some of those guys who some of those guys who maybe sponsor me for less money. You need to know that as a sponsored player. You need to know when that opportunity comes to name drop your sponsors, that you're ready to do it. You understand how to work them into a conversation. Again, some of the stuff that I've done at 45 years old, my first jobs were at Hot Wheels. I worked alongside NASCAR drivers. I worked alongside supercross racers. I was involved in professional skateboarding and X Games type stuff. I had media training because I became somebody that Hot Wheels was marketing. And I was speaking at conventions and they wanted us to speak well. I attended things like Toastmasters. Those companies, particularly Mattel, made investments in me personally. Those investments continue to pay off today. That type of work is valuable. And I would suggest that a number of our professional cornhole players should consider some of those things. Today, that kind of stuff's available on YouTube. There's quite a bit in terms of tutorials and things out there for free. But getting out there, learning how to speak in front of people, learning how to handle sponsorships is going to be key for them to develop to be where they want to be as a professional athlete.
Yeah, and we'd even talked off here about when you're going for a particular sponsor, sure you can put that like we say, that Facebook post out just for everybody, but when you're actually looking down, you've got to look and see just what your demographic is that you want to really go for, because like you said off here when we're talking that the sponsors you were going for last year, because you now have a different partner, you can't go for those same sponsors this year, right? So you've got to kind of look at what you can actually help out, or who can help you out.
So to what you're saying, Doug, I formulate a plan at the beginning of every season. I look at myself, my goals. I look at my partner and how my partner factors into that, and I build a plan. That sort of Hail Mary post that gets thrown out there, hey, I'm a new pro, travel's expensive, sponsor me. The reality is very few decision-making marketing heads are probably friends with you and will see that post and magically drop $10,000 in your lap. That post is more like what I would refer to as a GoFundMe. Please make an investment in me. Give me $20, $50, $100. If you're really nice, couple $100, and hopefully I can buy a few plane tickets and stay in a hotel and make some dates. And if I do win, hopefully I'll make a post about it and thank you. That's awesome. I mean, and it's a place to start. But once you hit the pro, that's really probably what you should be doing as an upper level advanced player. And that's how you get started. When you get to be a pro, you put some things together. Like I said, this starts out as a sales job. This is work off the boards. Hundreds of emails, phone calls go out, text messages. I start the year looking through my LinkedIn. With all the experience I have, I've worked alongside a lot of great marketing people who have worked at a lot of great companies and have moved on to other great companies and other great companies, creating a web of network connections. I start to mine that and say, well, who's where and how does that sync up with my expectations as a professional player? This year I'm playing with Moses Azueta, young 16-year-old phenom from Arizona. The sponsors that he and I are appropriate for he and I this year, and the sponsors that we can probably deliver a better return on investment for, are far different than I would have had last year with Andrew Robinson. Andrew was 28, 29-year-old pro. We were looking at a lot of alcohol and different brands in that area, and those types of brands sync up with him and I'm looking more at brands that sync up and can be delivered with Moses, and that makes sense. So I start then looking at my LinkedIn and say, okay, well, who matches this? Create a list, start sending out. I start out with a cover letter, much like a resume. It's a cold call. So it's a cover letter with a handful of pictures on it, very briefly who I am, very briefly what the ACL opportunity is. If I get a response from any of that, I then follow it up with a more detailed PowerPoint presentation that has a lot more data in it, a lot more expanse on who I am, on who Moses is, on where we live, on demographics from who we reach from a Facebook standpoint, number of people we reach, post reach, all of that across multiple different pages that I manage, that are specific to me, that are specific to Moses, how those sponsors can then get activated. If I have other sponsors already locked in place, such as Ultra, who's my bag sponsor, I will often let people know that. I'll let them know what's available. I don't generally put a price tag out in either two of those documents because it is a sales job. And the first guy who offers a price is generally the loser. Because if I ask you, Doug, for $100 and you say, how about 50? And we settle at 75, it's 25 less than I wanted. You win. Right. And that's how negotiation works. So I generally don't throw out a number until we get to numbers, and then it's a feel out thing, right? You kind of have a value, you kind of have an understanding of what each position is worth as it relates to you. I've had conversations with other pros. I don't know how much that space is worth. How much do you think it's worth? A year ago, when Andrew and I put together our budget, we wanted to play cornhole for free. We did a budget. We looked at all of the tournaments that we wanted to go to. We estimated how much each tournament would cost us. And then we divided that by the number of positions on the jersey. And we force ranked that based on the number one spot. The biggest spots were going to be worth more than the smaller spots. This spot, which is the one spot you get that's considered above the fold, that spot's the most valuable spot. And any NASCAR driver will tell you that's the most valuable spot. That's why they have a whole bunch of little ones up here. This is above the fold. Even my Ultra logo on this video is getting clipped a little bit. This spot right here is going to draw the most attention because in most cases, they're going to zoom a camera in, show your face. Hat's going to be worth a heck of a lot of money. Front of hat in golf, one of the biggest, most expensive spots. Why you generally don't see a golfer not wearing some sort of headwear. Because it's too much money not to wear a hat. Mm-hmm. That those are the kinds of things that, you'll figure out how much those things are valuable to you. And then you'll grow from there. You'll live and you'll learn. If you sell your hat for $400, you sold your hat for $400, wear whatever logo you sold. Don't change it mid-season because company A comes in and says, well, hey, I'll give you $1,000 to switch hats. Well, if that's going to happen, you better go back to your other sponsor and be like, look, here's $200 back. I know you bought the whole season. I only gave you half. Somebody's going to give me $1,000 for the rest of the season. If you're not willing to have that conversation, don't switch hats. Mm-hmm. In all honesty, I would tell you, don't switch hats. You made a deal with somebody, live up to the deal. That's the return on investment. That guy who gave you $400 for your hat, he's going to then testify the next year. Yeah, that dude totally did what I said. Eric delivered. He wore that hat in every tournament. Every picture has that hat in it. I got my $400 worth and some. You know, everything Eric said he was going to do, he came through with. And then he's going to then, you know, be that guy for you to be able to say, hey, sponsor 2, you know, year 2 sponsor, call these guys. You don't believe me? You don't believe that I'm going to deliver? Here's a phone number, right? And those guys are going to be the ones who step up and say, yeah, that guy delivers.
Yeah, and then also people I think that are thinking what the sponsorship ways is what, you know, what they want to do, but there's also those sponsors will also want more out of you or whatever, what, you know, maybe they want you to go to more tournaments, so they'll kind of like let you know of that as well too.
Yeah, so, you know, again, this is where having a written sponsorship agreement is absolutely key. It can be as simple as a Microsoft Word document where you spell out, you know, once you get to the negotiation back and forth in your text messages and your emails and in your phone calls, you compile that in the letter. You know, a contract is really just a letter. Anything written and signed by both parties is an enforceable contract. Even just back and forth email correspondence is essentially a contract. Write it down. My sponsor with Ultra this year, they were very clear with the number of nationals, the number of shootouts, the number of opens that they were expecting of me to play in. You know, those things are clearly spelled out in my contract with them. With my smaller sponsors, and I now have sponsors that I would call our local sponsors. They are sponsors who may not show up on my pro jersey because financially they may not get there, and they may have less value. You know, a lawyer operating in Riverside County, California, he's, you know, aside from vanity, having his logo on a jersey on a professional cornhole telecast, he doesn't operate in New York City or in Paducah, Kansas, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Brief. You know, he's not licensed to work there. So, you know, for him, it's much more valuable that I have larger spots dedicated to him at the local and regional level where I'm playing in his area, where his customers are at. He's going to want photos of me wearing the jersey I'm wearing today is my Miller Wealth Management Ultra jersey. So Ultra, you know, they're my main sponsor, so they're going to always be in the primary spot. But the colors now of this jersey are specific to Miller Wealth Management. There's large Miller Wealth Management graphics and iconography across this jersey. This is a jersey you would see me wear, you know, anywhere really, but you're going to see me wear it for regionals. You're going to see me wear it for conference level events because Miller Wealth Management is licensed to do financial planning in Arizona and California. So he's really going to want me wearing that jersey where it best impacts his customers. And so that's how you're going to see me represent his company. You know, I have that understanding with him. We have that written in our agreement. We have an understanding that that logo may not appear on the pro jersey this year. That is because we negotiated that. We talked about it. We set it into a contract, and we'll deliver against that. So, and you know, Rod and Miller Wealth Management is, you know, I've got 2 sponsors that have been with me the longest, Rod and Ultra. Rod gave me $500 3 years ago to chase my dream, right? I still called him and asked him. I didn't post any random thing up on Facebook. I called him. I asked him. He hooked me up with a very small investment of $500. I produced some jerseys. All of my partners that year got a jersey at my cost. I probably spent that $500 on jerseys, but Rod had 10 dudes running around with jerseys that had Rod Miller on it. He felt like he got his money's worth and was willing to stay with me another year. And he upped that money the second year. And our relationship has been upped in the third year. This year now I'm managing his social media for him. There's a cost with that. I'm making money from that. You know, I'm helping to grow his team. He now has a number of professional cornhole athletes and advanced athletes that he is sponsoring as he grows his business in Arizona and California. So And we talk about who those athletes are and how they fit his business. You know, is this an athlete that, you know, financial planning, you know, unfortunately, if you're a younger professional cornhole player, it's probably you may or may not be a great spokesman for financial planning, right? Whereas a middle-aged guy might be a perfect spokesman for financial planning. You know, if you're a young cornhole professional, you know, I think I made a joke off air, you know, you want to find a brand like Flamin' Hot Cheetos. You know, if I'm wearing a Flamin' Hot Cheetos jersey, something's probably wrong. You know, if a new pro, you know, 22 years old is wearing it, it makes more sense. And so you're going to try to go down those routes as you find sponsors, as they link up to who you are and how you present yourself already on court.
Yeah, and the other thing is you know, aside from that other thing, you know, we keep kind of going back to Facebook posts, but just go out and just even just in your everyday life, talk about you with cornhole and what you do, because you never know just what might fall in. You know, I talk about falling in your lap, but just what might happen with that. Because for myself here, with our new Southern Ontario cornhole series that's coming out here, our sock series, trying to find some sponsorship for stuff from teams, and I talked with Matt about our three Kitchener teams here, and we're like, well, what if we went and got this sponsor? Could possibly be the full, could do sponsor the full league, could sponsor just maybe a few teams. We're like, okay, we need to find out how we can get in touch with that. And we had a parent function the other week there with my son's hockey team, talking to the guy about cornhole, all this here stuff. I was like, oh yeah, we're trying to get this here company. He's like, oh really? I do promotion for that restaurant, and we're just, you know, there's one part that's just Ontario, but then we're also nationally as well too. And I'm like, well, I kind of do a cornhole podcast that's nationally as well too. So that's now led into a possible partnership with this other thing. So just kind of just word of mouth talking can almost get you a little farther than just putting that blast post of it on Facebook.
Well, again, what you described is the networking side of business. How you present yourself off the court, how you carry yourself, how you talk about the sport, how you talk about what you do, is key. You were constantly, the story you described is exactly how life works once you get into business, where you're kind of constantly on. You're working when you're not working. You know, you hear that about small business. It's the same with top business guys, CEOs, heads of marketing. They're always working. They're always looking for an opportunity. Their ear is always open to something that is interesting. If you're a professional cornhole player, I would argue that you are the most interesting man in whatever room you're in. Mm-hmm. I once spent 6 hours in the United Lounge in Houston. I think it was Houston, on my way to a national. I had a long layover. I used an old lounge pass from when I flew a lot for business. And I had on a t-shirt that said something about like husband, father, cornhole legend that I had gotten for Father's Day. Every time I went up and got a drink, there was a snicker. Cornhole was on the TV behind the bar. The guy goes, "What's up with the shirt?" Right? As I'm like 6 Jack and Cokes in, having a nice afternoon before I get on my second flight. And I'm like, well, you won't believe it, but I'm a professional cornhole player. Everybody at the bar immediate was like, oh, wow, it's on right now. What's it like? Right? I didn't present it as it's a drunken backyard sport. You know, I presented it as it's interesting, it's new, it's niche, mm-hmm. But we take it serious, right? We throw. This is really difficult, right? I used analogies like you're a pretty good golfer, right? I'm in a United Lounge. So I'm like, you're probably a pretty good golfer, a pretty good tennis player. You can't play Tiger Woods. That guy up there, that guy, that's Tiger Woods. Like, you know, that guy is Tiger friggin' Woods. Or maybe Jack Nicklaus. You know, maybe Brett is Tiger. You know, shout out to the guys. You know, those guys, they start to understand that's pretty interesting. But the conversation immediately went to cornhole. You start asking them, well, what do you do? Right? You know, you start to define find out, well, oh, I'm here or I'm there. You get a business card and follow-up conversation down the road. You get a phone number, follow-up conversation down the road. You aren't going to lock a $10, $20, $30,000 deal in the United Lounge, but you might start one.
Mhm.
You might start one after church. You might start one in the at the spring carnival at your kid's school. You might start one at your local blind draw. You know, we have a great place we play, Five Suits Brewing, on Monday night here in San Diego. They were super awesome and let us start playing there during the pandemic. We were playing outside, so it was pretty cool. We lost our old spot, and they kind of let us in. I reached out to them a year ago, again, cold call. Hey, you want to sponsor me? Yeah, the pandemic, yeah, back and forth. Nick was super cool. It wasn't the right fit for him then. We reached a year later. We're going to celebrate our 1-year anniversary at Five Suits next week. And Nick is in a different position. He's not going to sponsor me. I told him, I said, look, I don't need it. I'm in a good spot, but I'd rather see you pick up Matt Allen, Sarah Planchon, Jody Lim, some of our PDC players that from North County. I thought it would be cool if he could do something with them. Given that we helped prop his business up during the pandemic. We brought a lot of players through his door. He's become a cornhole addict like the rest of us and some of his friends. That is a relationship that grew. Sarah is the first person who actually opened that door and got our group over there after being shuttered for 6, 8, 9 months, maybe a year before we got into somewhere new. Again, those things grow, and that potential sponsorship that's out there, as Nick has been thinking about it, how does he want to handle it? He's an awesome guy. He's the guy who took a picture of my name when it did go across ESPN. He's a super fan, a super good guy. And, he'll do something with some of these guys because he cares and because we've brought something back to him. There's a return on investment. He made a decision a year ago to allow people to play cornhole around his small brewery. Ultimately, he's now got lights on top of the building. He lets us store our equipment in the back, and we're there every Monday playing. We run some other things through there, and I think it's been a mutually beneficial relationship, which is why he's now in a position to potentially give back in a way that maybe he wasn't a year ago. So those conversations you have with people in your everyday life, they may not pay off tomorrow. They're going to pay off down the road, potentially. They may never pay off, but it's not a waste of time to try to nurture them. At a certain point in time, a sales guy will tell you how to cut loose on and not spend time on things that aren't going to pay. But initially, as you're getting into this, spend time with everybody, give everybody what you can, because you're trying to get something back from them. And what they see coming to them is going to be an indication of what they can expect to receive once they actually start to pay you.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because like that one conversation I had with that one father led to 2 more fathers coming in, 2 more. All of a sudden, there was like 10 people around asking me questions about cornhole, and I was like, well, yeah, it's now a professional. I kind of know that there's some people making this, there's some people making that, and that kind of draws them in because they're like, we just thought it was just like this thing you do in the backyard. We had no idea that there was this whole professional stuff, and I kind of talk about the ESPN stuff that's going on and the CBS stuff because up here we are still full on grassroots. It's only at the cottage that you play cornhole.
Yeah.
Right. And even like the guys that I even play Thursday night hockey with, they were kind of been joking with me all along, but now all of a sudden this year they've kind of taken a bit more interest in what's going on. And I know they're all, they've all got business stuff. And I was like, well, maybe we can do something with your business, just whatever, just kind of the thing. But just that social networking is just, especially for the people up here in Canada, that we need to just kind of get the word about the game being more, it's brought inside a little more professionalism than just at that cottage.
Yeah. I mean, look, you can look at any sport and it's very similar. You can look at basketball, right? there is basketball being played on playgrounds across this country, in driveways across this country. Good players playing, you know, two guys shooting all day, lights out, right? In a driveway, playing horse. Then it grows to, you know, organized youth athletics. Then it gets to travel basketball. Then it gets to college basketball and on its way up, right? And then there's splinters. There are, you know, street ball tours. There's the Harlem Globetrotters. There's, you know, a variety of other things that splinter off. There are secondary leagues. You know, you can go play in Europe, in Israel. You can go play in the D League, right? And each one of those has different marketing values as you move throughout. They pay differently. The structures are all different. There are professional basketball players that do not play in the NBA and make a very good living playing basketball. You know, that is, you know, our sport is going to be like that as we grow. There's going to be a lot of different ways people can play and get paid. I have a buddy here in San Diego, the Washed Up Warrior. You may have seen him. He's the king of trick shots. I literally don't think anybody can do more trick shots than him. He's an I think he's a Green Beret and a former pro skateboarder in like the 90s. You'll see him post some old skateboarding videos every once in a while, literally shot on like VHS camcorder stuff. Mm-hmm. He knows from pro skateboarding, he brought that model into the digital age. He watched how that model grew from his old days to the digital age. He then applied that model to trick shots in cornhole, right? And now is, you know, probably the leader in trick shot cornhole. And that is, you know, I'm not sure exactly where he's at or Dan is at, but if he's not monetizing that yet, he will be soon. You know, that is part of how cornhole will go as well, right? Again, talking about what you're doing off the boards. That's where there's an opportunity to make quite a bit of money. Not related necessarily to your performance within a national tournament, because you can control it. You know, great thing about Dan is, you know, you can go to Dan and be like, and I've shot some trick shots with Dan. Sometimes they go in. God forbid we do something really cool and we didn't have the cameras on, because it takes forever to do it a second time. You set something up, you think something's going to be cool, and you set it up. It may take a while to actually hit the shot. You don't know how many shots were shot to get that particular video that ultimately will hopefully go viral. Those are things you can control when you are the editor, when you are controlling the social channels. So then again, that's control of how your image is presented to the end customers that are you're then marketing your sponsorship brands to. Those are things that, again, you can do. Variety of other things that you can do. We didn't touch on this. Most of my contracts include a clause for appearance fees, some sort of appearance, right? So take, for instance, Camerata and Fuller Law. Their contract last year had an appearance fee in it, or not necessarily a fee. It talked about fees. It had an appearance clause. That clause said, hey, I'll come out up to 2 times at no cost, as long as it doesn't interfere with an ACL professional, conference level, or regional level tournament, right? It could be for a commercial. You could use me for a commercial. Could use me for a photo shoot for a billboard. Reality, he didn't want me for that stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, I told him, I said, hey, you could use it. I mean, I have 8 sets of boards and some equipment. It could be for your company picnic in the summer. We'll run a small tournament. I'll set something up. You know, we can run a little blind draw, A/B blind draw, have a little fun. Ultimately, I think it's just because he's never actually used it. I've never checked it. He's used it, but I go over his house and shoot with him. Mm-hmm. You could probably argue that is my appearance fee or my appearance clause has been utilized in that way. But, you know, that's the same with any of my sponsors. I put some of that kind of, you know, if I'm the one writing the contract, that will be in the contract as an offering to them. They can use it. They don't have to use it. You know, it could be as simple, especially with some of these younger guys looking for, you know, their mom's co-worker's husband's restaurant that might be wanting to sponsor them for $500 might mean going over there and giving the guy lessons twice for a couple hours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're paid you $500 and they got that back. You know, that one-on-one time with you could be part of that return on investment that particular guy might be looking for. So there's a lot of different ways that you can make a sponsorship work for different people. You just kind of need to read them. Like you're talking about when you're networking with your guy at your school function. You know, you got to read them and kind of begin to understand quickly what they're looking for and then how you might be able to deliver on that. And I think that's the beginning of sealing a deal.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and you know, and I'm just kind of thinking myself here that I know that I'm very guilty of not keeping up with the social media aspect of even this show, you know, because getting the stuff out there but you know, especially with some of the ACL pros, or if you want to be a pro, or even just anyone, you've already got that full-time job, and you've got to go and remember that this now becomes another full-time job that you've got to keep up with as well, putting out those posts and those right hashtags and remembering to put hashtags with any post that you do. It's going to be more than what you may have bargained for.
If you have dreams of being a professional cornhole player, professional podcaster, then you have to think of it as a full-time job, right? I heard Trey Ryder the other day say there's only so many hours you can practice. There's only so many hours you can play in local blind draws. You have quite a bit of time on your hands if you're a professional cornhole player. Make the best use of it, right? Especially if you want that to be your primary income source. If you're 25 years old, $40,000, $50,000 is probably enough to live on. You know, so if you can scratch together with your 4 or 5 spots and some other things, you know, $40,000, $50,000 worth of sponsorship / expected winnings. If you have some sort of sense of how much money you won the last 3 or 4 years, then you can average that out and believe that you're going to hit that mark. Again, if you're making 40 grand at 25 years old and you're living with your mom, you probably can make a living as a professional cornhole player doing nothing but playing cornhole. Heck, if you've got the right roommate / partner, you might be able to make. You might be able to even not live at home. You might be able to do it with, you know, an apartment or a house that you can buy depending on where you live in the world. So you've got a lot of hours on your hand. Make use of them. Learn social media. There's definitely a lot of stuff out there. If you start searching how to maximize Instagram, how to maximize TikTok, what works, what doesn't. You know, I'm lucky. My daughter does social media marketing for a living. She runs American Girl's social media. What a blessing it is. As a father, when she went to college and told me she was going to do that, I thought she was like, I'm like, you're majoring in Facebook? That stuff's going to be gone. Well, here it is. It's still here.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it. And she's constantly telling me and sending me articles and things now about how I should be learning this, trying that. And she's not wrong. Those opportunities are there, especially for the young players to make this a living. But they're going to have to work at it. And it's going to be more than 40 hours a week. If you're an entrepreneur, if you work for yourself, you work 24 hours a day. You just do, right? You know, if you own a restaurant, you work in the restaurant for 8 hours, then you go home and you work another 4 hours, or you go in before the restaurant opens, you work 4 hours on billing, right? You go in earlier than anyone to open the door to do shipping and receiving on stuff. You got to go pay the bills. You got to go to the bank. You got to balance the books. You're the accountant, right? You wear all the hats. If you're a professional cornhole player who currently doesn't pay for a manager, you wear all the hats. And the expectation is that you're doing all of those things. You know, you are your own accountant. You are your own Lawyer, you are your own janitor, right?
Mm-hmm.
You clean, you fold and clean your clothes. You plan your own travel agent. All of those things are jobs that fall to you. And the better you learn how to do those things and find out which ones of those things help generate the most revenue, you'll spend your time in those areas. And social media right now, because you can control it, gives you the opportunity to position yourself how you want to be positioned in the world, to create whatever persona it is you want to create, and to push yourself and your collection of sponsors and brands that you're associated with in a way that can generate revenue for you.
And I think we're saying that is probably the perfect segue to part 2 coming up next week, when we're going to have you back on again to talk the pro side of stuff. We talked about the sponsorship stuff. Come back and we're going to talk the pro side of stuff next year. I want to thank you for coming on. And so you've talked about your sponsors. Do you want to go through the whole list of the ones that you have?
Well, yeah. So this year, I'm super excited. Ultra is behind me 100% again. This is my second season with Ultra as a pro player. Thank you, Mark. Love his bags. We just did our pro pick. Thank you to everybody who went out there and bought that pro pick. That is some amazing stuff. Behind them, Rod Miller is back with me, as we spoke about. Garment Specialties. I have business and Cornhole shirts, where I produce jerseys and Cornhole shirts and hats and a variety of other things for clubs, for different people. Garment Specialties is one of my suppliers, one of my main manufacturers, based out of Cleveland, or the Cleveland area of Ohio, Twinsburg, Ohio. Shout out to Nick Twitchell and Alexis Twitchell for that. Those guys are great. We are still looking for a couple of additional people. I'm sure Camerata and Fuller Law from last year will be back in some capacity. Simple Vision AV will probably be back. Rustica Garden Works will probably be back. We're in that time period where things are changing with lots of different people. So again, I shout out to Horvath Electric outside of Cleveland, Ohio, real big group that took care of me last year. We shifted that sponsorship over to one of their other businesses in Garment Specialties. So overall, that's a lot of how you would hear a NASCAR driver speak about it. Hopefully that gives a good indication of how you might do it. But thanks for that opportunity.
Oh, yeah, sure. And of course, I kind of mentioned before with the show here, Octane Cornhole, octanecornhole.com, discount code CornDoug, get you 10% off. MyEarFun.com. I'm not wearing them right now. They are right here. The Earfun head earbuds. Or you can get your waterproof Bluetooth speaker, because everyone needs a waterproof Bluetooth speaker, easy for me to say, around the pool. And then, as always, JC Cornhole. Talk to Jamie at JC Cornhole. Mention my name. You may get a deal. You may not. Just depends on how many ciders he's in. Then Sierra Home Inspections. Talk to Darren West in Edmonton, Alberta. Sherwood Park, to be exact. So all of you people in Stone Cold, did it wrong again, cold-blooded cornhole in the Edmonton area, to check him out, and he will, as I said, a portion of his cost that he does for his business does go to a children's hospice cancer place in the Edmonton area. Then there's no Ultra bags on it yet. Maybe, Mark, if you're watching, then maybe you start getting into Canadian Cornhole Supplies Canada, csccornhole.com. Get all of your bags you can get out of the States up here without paying the extra shipping or any other extra charges. So check them out. Right now they've got the Octane bags, the Game Changers, or all Cornhole bags, local bags, some fire bags, and hopefully soon maybe Ultra. Maybe Mark, if you can get up here, get your Canadian players going some Ultra bags. So everyone, again, if you like the show, give it a little thumbs up. Subscribe to the show. We're almost at that 300 subscribers. We'll give away another set of bags once we get to 300 subscribers. And as always, just keep watching and watch out for those players throwing gas, because they might, probably not me, kick your ass.
Awesome.